Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Ferdinand Stalley, and it's a little weird to be introducing myself to you via video the first time, but I am really looking forward to meeting you in person in class on Wednesday this week. I wanted to give you your first weekly video for Writing 210. So I've just got a few slides that I'd like to share with you. So I'm going to share my screen real quickly, and we will go from there. So here's what you can expect in 210 this week. We're going to spend Wednesday sort of getting to know each other, getting to understand what this class is actually all about. And we'll also set up some expectations for how we'll work together in the classroom. We're also going to discuss some foundational elements of style that will lay the groundwork for the work that we'll be doing over the course of the semester. So here's what you need to do to get ready for class on Wednesday. I'd like you to review the class syllabus and calendar, which is posted in the Begin Here folder on Blackboard. Also, take a little bit of time, just a few minutes, just to explore the Writing 210 Blackboard page, just so you know where you can find information. And if there's something that you're looking for that you can't find, then you can let me know and I can tell you where to find it, or else put it there if it needs to be there. I'd also like you to do two short readings for class on Wednesday. So the first, all you need to do is just skim Mike Bunn's essay, How to Read Like a Writer. And then also I'd also like you to read the introduction to our course textbook, Performing Prose. So you can get the textbook at the university bookstore, but it's also available online through the library. And the link to that is in Blackboard. It's also linked on the syllabus, so you should be able to have access to it there. I know I run the risk of being that mean professor who asks you to do reading before school even starts. But because our class is hybrid, I want to hit the ground running. And so these two readings will help us shape our discussion for this week and also the week ahead. So what's due this week? By Sunday at 11:59 p.m., I'd like you to read Alexander Chee's essay, Annie Dillard and the Writing Life. You also need to complete discussion boards number 1 and 2, and then finally complete the student information form. All of these are linked in the asynchronous work folder for the week 1 folder. So you should find all of that information there. And again, that just needs to be done by the end of the week this week. All right, so week 1, key concepts. The rhetorical situation, which is a term you might be familiar with, but if not, you'll get really familiar with it in this class. We'll also talk about 3 ways to analyze prose, the 3 arenas of style as performance, and then finally, reading like a writer. So what does this mean? When we talk about the rhetorical situation, we're really talking about any kind of communication that is happening. So it could be writing that you're doing for a class, or kind of, whether it's creative writing or nonfiction. It's a rhetorical situation is a conversation that you have with somebody in line at the grocery store. So it's any kind of communication that is happening between one or more individuals. And it's made up of 3 distinct components. There's the audience, the message, and the speaker. So the speaker has a message that they're trying to convey to a specific audience. And so there's interactions and relationships between all 3 of these things. So a writer has to shape a message depending on who the audience is. There's a relationship that's built between the audience and the speaker. And the speaker also has to figure out what they want to say. So there's a relationship between the speaker and the message as well. But there's more nuance to it as well, because genre also has a role to play. So if you think about, you are trying to communicate to your parents that you need more money in your checking account to pay for groceries this week. So are you going to convey that through a text message? Are you going to make a phone call? Are you going to write a certified letter that you send through the US Postal Service? It depends, right? And so every rhetorical situation is shaped by choices that the writer makes. And one of those choices is actually genre. So all of these things are intertwined and interrelated. And we'll use this as a way to think about how style affects the relationship between the audience, between the audience and the message, between the speaker and the message. So style plays a part in this as well. And that's why we're really talking about this as a foundational element. So in the textbook, in Performing Prose, you'll see Holcomb and Killingsworth talk about 3 different ways that we can read a text and we can analyze a text for style. The first is by looking at the grammar. So as you know, grammar is a set of rules by which language functions. But style is really the choices that a writer makes within grammatical systems. So those choices can either be stylistic variants, where a writer uses alternate expressions for the same thing, or they can, we're also thinking about the idea of stylistic value, which means the effect or style choice, the effect that a style choice has on a text, on an audience, on a context or a rhetorical situation. So grammar, style, but then also performance. And this is really the key idea, that all style is a kind of performance within a text. So Holcomb and Killingsworth say that when language goes into action, it's a performance, or when style interacts with audience and a larger context. So we're looking at the relationship between style, audience, message, and speaker. All of those things are connected. And that's really the work that we'll be doing this semester. Holcomb and Killingsworth also talk about the 3 arenas, and these are the 3 different ways that style can perform, or that a writer can perform their style in a given text. So the first style, or the first arena, I'm sorry, is the textual arena. So when we're looking at the textual arena, we're really paying attention to the text itself and how words interact to form patterns and meaning. For example, these are things like word length or word choice, sentence length, or imagery. So we have the textual arena, but beyond that, a little bit more broadly, we have the social arena. And this is the area, the way that we're thinking about the interactions between a writer and a reader that happen through the text, through the words and the patterns, that the sentence patterns that writers choose. So for example, if you are describing what you did this weekend and you're using very bland, sort of uncomplicated words or sentences, you're going to engage or not your reader in a specific kind of way. However, if you're using really vivid details and interesting sentences and unusual word combinations, that's going to grab your reader's attention. And so when you see those kinds of choices, those are happening in the social arena between the writer and the reader. Finally, we have the cultural arena. And this is where the text and the writer exist outside of just their individual relationship, but in the whole world at large, in our culture. And so when we're looking at stylistic choices in this way, we're paying attention to the interaction between language and cultural meanings or values. So for example, if we use slang, or if we're using specific kinds of metaphor, that it's linking toward cultural values, cultural norms, or cultural ideas that are bigger than just the relationship between the writer and the reader or the text itself. So Holcomb and Killingsworth are really understanding style as a kind of performance that works in these 3 different ways: in the textual arena, the social arena, and the cultural arena. So when we're looking at texts, we're also going to be looking at how they are working individually on the page, in the relationship between the reader and the writer, and finally in the larger cultural arena. So on the surface, it seems like style could be a really simplistic idea, just word choice or a kind of flourish that you add to your sentences. But in fact, it's much more complex. And so the work of this semester is figuring out the details of how that complexity works so that you as writers can understand the choices that you make and how to make them most effectively and efficiently in your own written work. So those are some of the key ideas that I wanted to make sure you had some initial context for. It'll help your reading for this week. And we'll dive into more of these ideas in class on Wednesday. So as you read for class on Wednesday, a couple of questions for you to consider. For performing prose, I'd like you to think about what the key points are that Holcomb and Killingsworth are making about style and about writing in that chapter. And then what I'd just like you to reflect a little bit on what you see as the value of looking at style through the different lenses of the textual, social, and cultural arenas. Then, when you read Bunn's How to Read Like a Writer, just think a little bit about what it means to read like a writer, as Bunn is describing. How is that different from the type of reading that you typically do? So those are just some questions to get you thinking as you start to read. That's what we have on tap for this week. And that's all I've got for you. So I will see you all in class on Wednesday. If you have questions between now and class, don't hesitate to either post them to the Q&A discussion board on Blackboard, or you can send me an individual email. But I'm really looking forward to meeting you all, and I'm excited to get started.